James David holds the most wins and the championship lead, yet he doesn't seem able to win on a broadcasted race. Should he be concerned with superstition, or could today break the curse? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 5 of the PRL GT4 Clubsport series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Jeff McConey. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Snetterton is one of the newer tracks here on iRacing, and in case our viewers haven't become familiar with it yet, why don't we head down to our track guide to learn some more. Welcome to Snetterton Circuit. Like many British tracks that were born shortly after World War II, this venue was made out of an old military airfield. It's a mere 30 minutes drive from Norwich and offers up 3 different layouts of varying lengths. This means the track is easily able to host international, regional, and club-level racing. Previously rather simple, the circuit's most recent update in 2011 introduced a twisty infield section. Still, it's mainly punctuated by 2 very long straights, the Senna Straight, where the pits are located, and the Bentley Straight, which acts as the backstretch. As you'd expect for a track born out of an airfield, there's little in the way of elevation change. However, the one spot in which you do find some undulation, it really stands out. The bomb hole dips cars down in the middle of a quick right-hand kink, causing them to have to keep a heads up lest they lose the car. The track is not without character though. Riches is very swift for a first turn and includes 2 distinct apexes. There's also the combination of Brundle and Nelson, which forces drivers to turn hard while braking. Never an easy combination to manage. The long sweeping run through Coram down into Murray's can also be quite tricky. The car will want to drift out, forcing a shallow entry into the final left-hander. But failing to give yourself a good exit will leave you vulnerable to attack down the pit straight. Perhaps not as famous as some other British circuits, this place is a bit of a hidden gem in the UK motorsport scene. Fans who get to witness racing here certainly seem likely to return. You see what it's like around here at Snetterton. A lot of UK courses here on the service, Jeff. But as I said, this one kind of new. So why don't you fill in a few of the details about this place for our audience?
This is certainly a difficult track to get around, to say the least. It's 2.98 miles, or 4.8 kilometers. It's 13 turns. Every which one has a name, so follow along here, and you'll hear all of them here tonight. It's a 45-minute race, and that's going to be pretty difficult for these guys. 45 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but being perfect for 45 minutes straight, certainly no easy task, and we'll see who's able to get it done. But racing would not be possible without all of our sponsors. So, Joe, why don't you tell us about who we need to thank for letting us do what we love here tonight?
Well, as always, today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at SIMMSA.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Now, the championship, which we've seen 2 of the rounds, this will be the 3rd that we've covered, but we're in round 5. Currently, as I said, has James David up at the top of those points. And it's small margins, though, between himself, Romano, and McDonald. Equidistant between each other, 6 points from David to Romano, and then from Romano to McDonald. Then you got a bit of a gap back to Prue and LeBlanc. Those top 3 have really been the pace of the field for much of the season. Again, James having 2 wins versus Romano and McDonald each sharing 1. So the question is, can James make it 3 today and finally win when everybody is watching? Now, we have a team's championship as well here. Jeff, why don't you run down real quick on exactly how that's looking?
Davidson Motorsport holds the lead with 248 points. Right behind them in second, 71 points down, is Tizonac Racing. SRT Esport Green sits in third. Apex Button Box South is 126 points behind in fourth. And SRT Esport Blue sits fifth, 134 points down. So of the top five, SRT holds the top two of the top spots, but they are still far behind Davidson Motorsport, who had three of the top five drivers in the point standings.
So that should be fun to watch and see how that one comes out with uh it seems like Davidson Motorsports really having domination, but you can't bank on anything in that team's championship because it takes everybody being consistent throughout the season. So right now, qualifying is underway, and James David does have the top spot. I noticed, though, Jeff, that Romano was very fast in warm up, and what do you know? He just took the pole away by less than half a tenth over James David. So it looks like it's going to be between these two up at the front.
It certainly does look like that. Right now, James David is on his fifth lap out. A minute 56.119 is his fastest lap. But Giovanni Romano, his fastest lap, a 156.079. So not too far apart at all for these guys. And Mark McDonald sits in third. He's 8 tenths behind James David. So there's a big gap at the front of the field here. And looks like the top two are looking strong, as James David actually just went off, and he'll have to reset. It looks like he'll go back out there on cold tires. He needs a couple more minutes here to warm back up and get back going quick.
Yeah, he's got 7.5 minutes left to go, so there is time. As now we've got Mark McDonald, so our top three in the points, our top three in the qualifying currently. Mark a little bit behind some traffic. That's LeBlanc and Duval in front of him. Not sure if that is going to hold him up or not. Isn't exactly a track known for draft battles through here, but they're coming to the end of the lap. Let's see what he's got. His quickest is a 56.9. Get a little bit of a tow here, which looks like LeBlanc's actually getting a tow from Duval in front of him. So as he crosses, McDonald's does go quicker, 56.331. That's a nice little jump up, but he actually stays in fourth as he got beat by LeBlanc that lap by.
LeBlanc ran a 156.240. He's within a tenth there, though, of James David. He is on lap number 6, looking to pick up a little bit more speed, and Mark McDonald is not far behind at all. These guys right now are in their prime. They need to just go out there, keep hitting their marks, and like we said, this is a difficult course. It's a very difficult course to get around. Any incidents, any off tracks, or anything of the sort, and that lap time is invalidated, and they have to start from scratch the next lap around. These tires are at their peak at one particular lap. I think everyone's still finding out when they're absolutely the quickest, and they have to make sure that they are on top of their game. I know in road racing, a lot of the times it feels like you're racing against yourself more so than everyone else, and especially true in qualifying here. These guys are out there just trying to be absolutely perfect everywhere here on this 3-mile course.
Watch Duchesne come through. He's down in 20th at the moment around the long right-hand corner of Coram and into the hard braking of Murray's. Then he's got to get a clean exit here towards the line. As Duchesne just about there now. Comes down from this 20th spot and only one time lap. He does improve. And that is a 159.9 that he's got in. It looks like it doesn't take him any higher, unfortunately. He's still got some time to make up. You talked about the difficulty of this track, though, Jeff. I know you've done some time out here, done a few races out in the official stuff. What are some of the more difficult corners you feel like these drivers have to deal with in this car?
Definitely, there's a lot of different portions of this track that are quite difficult to get around. I think some of the more difficult corners that I found were Augie's, Brundle and Nelson, the bomb hole, and Murray's were certainly very difficult. The braking zones, I had trouble finding them, and being on top of my game. I'm no expert in road course racing, so that could have contributed. I'm far better behind a microphone than behind the wheel of one of these cars, but I tried it. Another thing that I noticed is there's not too many passing zones here where it's an easy pass to make. It's very difficult to get around other cars here, and there's some very, very tight corners. So you have to be smart, and even if you're faster than someone, you might have to sit behind them for a little bit longer than you'd like, as right now Giovanni Romano goes off course right there after running a 155.9, and everyone out here is, I'm sure, feeling those stresses of nailing the difficult corners, and especially, like I mentioned earlier, the ones that I had trouble with, Augie's Brundle Nelson and the bomb hole especially. You really just need to be perfect, and you're racing yourself there more than you're racing the competitors, because it's so easy to make a mistake.
One thing you may have noticed at the top of the screen is Eric LeBlanc has now taken the pole away from Romano. Half a tenth between those two. Still 3.5 minutes left to go. So James David now bumped down to third position. He's coming close to the line now, and I think he does also have some help. Gary Schilling ahead of him. Oh, but Gary is slow off the turn, and this is going to hold up David. Not only ruin this lap, but the next one as well, because he'll be slow at the start of this. So the number 89 is got to really hustle to get back around and start his next lap.
Unfortunate there, very unfortunate for James David. That 17 car just didn't get as good of a run off the turn, and like you mentioned, he was so checked up there at the worst possible place when you're trying to set a hot lap. He just was not carrying very much speed over the line, and now this lap is almost a waste, and you're sitting there the entire time driving around thinking to yourself, gosh, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Well, you could have been more like Mark McDonald, who just set fastest lap at a 155.639. But to go back to what I was saying, where you're so focused this lap now, you're getting into your own head, thinking, what could I have done better? Why did that have to happen? And you're just frustrated. And frustration behind the wheel of one of these cars is quite deadly.
Yeah, hopefully everybody can kind of contain that today, as we've now gotten down to just about 2 minutes left to go. Still Mark McDonald up at the top by 2 whole tenths, which is pretty decent in terms of gap for here. Romano still chasing as well, and he's still tight to LeBlanc. Not much between them. In fact, Romano giving a little bit of a toe to Christopher Richards right now, it seems.
Right now, anyone that's crossing the line at this point is on their last lap, because it takes a little under 2 minutes to get around. There is about 1 minute and 30 seconds left in qualifying. So these guys are out there. They are finishing up their laps. It looks like James David isn't going to be able to get a fast lap in like we were talking about earlier. And Mark McDonald is hoping that nobody else. We see Mike Richter come across the line there, and he did not move up, excuse me. He is sitting back there in 21st. He's only 4 seconds off, and I say only because you can overcome these things over the course of 45 minutes. In a long race like this, 45 minutes long, there will be guys that spin out ahead of you. There will be mistakes other people make, and you're just hoping you don't make one of your own. So right now, everyone is out there on their last lap with 1 minute left in qualifying. Mark McDonald is coming to the line.
Just crossed it, and it's not quicker for him, so he's got to try one last time. LeBlanc is in the pit, so he is not going to go perform anymore here in the qualifying. So we continue to ride on board with McDonald now into the infield section. We've switched over to Padavani. Glitter Pants is switched over to Tin Tops, and the 56 flat is actually going to bump him up onto the second row.
He beats out James David there, and right now he is sitting back there in fifth. He is first one on the third row, like you mentioned earlier. About 20 seconds left now here. Take a look with Troy Banks. He's working his way around, but everyone here is chasing Mark McDonald. He put down a very solid lap.
Clock ticking down to 0. It looks like Lyndon Swaby, Pegleg's going to have the first checkered flag in qualifying. He's sitting in 20th. There waves that checkered flag now, so everybody's got to complete the lap that they're on. Can't start a new one. Swaby goes quicker and jumps up 2 positions. That's up to 18th for him. Next up, it's going to be Mike Richter. He's got a 59.1. He's 21st. And it's a 58.2. So up to 20th place for Mike Richter. Another position gained for him. Here's an important one. James David is coming. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, but right there, James David actually went a little bit wide off the corner. He's carrying all that speed to the line. Oh, a 155.754 for him. he is up to second place, but Mark McDonald is still up at the front.
So not quite pole, but it'll put him in a good starting position. Meanwhile, who else do we have? McDonald abandons his lap. And it
That's
looks like
confidence.
Banks and Romano. Well, could be confidence, could be the fact that he knew he wasn't quicker that time by. Either
I like
or.
to think he was confident. We'll have to see, but
Looks like Romano also going to abandon his final lap, so he's not happy with it. Troy Banks, Bertome, and Richards going to be the last ones through, I believe. Watching Banks, he sits in 22nd with a 59.8, crosses the line, doesn't go any quicker. Looks like Bertome, Richards, both not happy with that lap. Delp is behind them, and I see Jorge Flores still out there. I think he can still complete his lap. Delp is going to take it. He's in 12th. His last was his fastest, but it's now this one, a 56.689, about 0.2 faster, but he doesn't gain any positions from that.
Flores is finishing up his lap soon here. Looks like he's the last one on track. Had a 1:56.137 as his fastest lap. As you see the hard left-hander coming up, and then followed immediately a hard right-hand turn. That is an easy place to make a mistake, but he nails it perfectly. Right now, this is a very difficult portion of the track as well. You're sort of off the throttle, half on, half off, working it here, doing everything you can to not overdrive this last corner and lose all the speed coming to the line.
Hugging it to the right side. Looks like he's dealing with it well. Flores taking it very wide. Did he keep it on track? Let's see if this lap counts. No, he seems to think that he did not. And he's going to come in. So that 56.136 will stay put, and our qualifying is set for the day. Let's go through that starting order. It is going to be Mark McDonald, who will be on the pole today. Let's see if he can get his second win. James David will be starting in second, with Eric LeBlanc in third position. Giovanni Romano will be starting fourth, followed by Jefferson Padavani behind them on the inside of row 3. To his outside, it'll be Jorge Flores with Jerome Bertome. Very good qualifying for him in 7th. Sebastian Prue starts 8th. Eric Luke puts it into 9th. And Marco Olivier rounds out the top 10.
Daniel Zegers, we are having some technical difficulties. We will get this all sorted out for you, don't you worry. But right now, starting in 11th is Daniel Zegers. In 12th, Nicholas Delp. 13th, Matt Hilton. Kenny Duval is 14th. David Cristelli starts 15th. In 16th, Mark File, I believe. Christopher Richards in 17th. Lyndon Suave in 18th. Spencer Semkowicz in 19th. And Mike Richter in 20th.
21st goes to Brian Hotham, with Troy Banks starting in 22nd. Then it's Danny Duchesne in the 23rd position. Gary Schilling starts 24th, and Glenn Bowen at 25th. Rodriguez and Phillipson did not put laps in qualifying. I do not see Phillipson in the session, so it looks like he will not take part in this race unless he starts from pit lane, which he will have time to try and get back into things, but it puts him certainly on the back foot. Hopefully we'll have a picture back to you here pretty soon. But in the meantime, we'll continue to give you the audible call here as we get ready to go racing for round 5 here in the GT4 Clubsport Series. Now, the last time that we had McDonald's win a race was round 1 at Laguna Seca. So it's been a minute since we've seen him on the top spot, and I'm wondering if this pole position is exactly what he needs to return there.
It's certainly a boost of confidence. I know starting at the front, you're feeling good about yourself. You know you're quick, but with James David only a 10th behind, my goodness, it makes it a little bit of a damper on it. So he just has to be smart. And really, this race is a war of attrition. You have to last the whole 45 minutes without making a major mistake. It's very, very easy to do, to drive off course, and once you're in the grass, I mean, you are along for the ride. It's like you're driving on ice almost. So you just have to be smart. It's a 45-minute long race, and that can't be emphasized enough because it's so easy. And if at 27 minutes in you make a mistake, that's it. You have another 18 minutes to try and correct it, and it's certainly not easy. coming to the green here.
Yep, and green flag is out as McDonald accelerates away. He was really trying to heat those tires up in this short pace lap. It seems like it may have paid off because he got a good jump over James David. Top four already single file as they head into Riches. First side-by-side battle is between Prue and Bertome. That's for 7th and 8th position. Now they come down into Wilson for the first time. This can be a bit of a danger zone as drivers accordion back together. So far, I'm not seeing any major incidents, and it looks like we've got a clean start here, Jeff.
They were 3 wide back there. Nicholas Delp was the meat in the sandwich. He was stuck in the middle. Right now, he is side by side with the 15 of Matt Hilton. We are working on getting a picture back. Here we go. What an amazing job we have now, so you can all enjoy this race. They are side by side right now on the edge of the top 10, taking advantage of every situation. That was the 63, Kenny Duvall, took it low to the inside and is making it work.
Yeah, that's where they finally get a little bit of a gap back behind them. Richards and Swaby trying to sort out 15th and 16th, but that finally gets single file as well. Up at the top, it is still McDonald leading David, leading LeBlanc, Romero back in 4th, and Flores in 5th. Those 5 getting a little bit of breathing space ahead of Jerome Bertome back in 6th place. No, 7th place, excuse me. Looks like Prue is the last one in that top train. Ooh, and Duchesne had an issue in the back. I think that was coming out of Williams. Just a single car incident. Don't need to go to that as he gets it going once again.
All eyes are on the top 3 right here as there's a bit of space between them coming to the end of lap 1 here. That hard left-hand turn, that's Murray's, and he makes a fantastic exit, Mark McDonald does, and he's just hauling the mail down the front stretch, doing everything he can to not let James David get a toe behind him. He needs to get a good gap going now if he wants to stay in front.
Flashing his headlights for some reason. Not sure why Mark McDonald is doing that. There's nobody ahead of him to warn. Oh, we've had an accident at the back. Looks like Troy Banks and Jefferson Padavani. Padavani, one of our major players there. This starts with Troy Banks, it seems. So not sure what exactly caused that. Not sure that we'll get a replay on it. And it looks like we may have lost David Cristelli as well. Here we go. We've got the replay now.
It looks like Troy Banks, oh my goodness, he just caught the edge of the track and the car spun around. Once you get onto that grass, it's like you're driving on ice. He backed it onto the course right in front of the 69 car, and you can see the damage on the 08. Let's take an onboard look with Jefferson Padavani. Excuse me.
That's fine. I think he's not going to be happy about that because, like you said, he backed it onto the track. He was well out of there. There's no way that the Brazilian would have known that car was going to come right back into his line, and that's essentially ended his day, it seems. Certainly ended Banks as he had a tire nearly off the car, you could see. Up at the front, McDonald and David starting to break away now, top 2 with a second gap to LeBlanc.
A very, very close battle. Let's take a look on board with David as he's just a couple car lengths away from Mark McDonald. He's doing everything he can. He's looking to get a good toe down the front stretch there and maybe make something happen further on.
And I seem to recall that this is how it was between these two back at Sonoma as well. But they had a nice fight going at the top. Of course, Romano in there as well, trying to take away that win. As they come up to Riches one more time. It was Romano who wound up winning at Sonoma. James David setting the fastest lap, even though he's in second place. So clearly reeling in that 2:16.
James David is doing everything he needs to do. It's a hard U-turn right there. Following up is Palmer here, a left-hand turn. It's very easy to overdrive this corner, get into the grass, and you are just sliding away at that point. Everybody is in control, though. It looks like Mark McDonald is pulling away here. He seems to be getting the better exits on turns, but right now, James David is absolutely on top of his game, biding his time. The advantage of this being a 45-minute race, he's got plenty of time to sit there and stalk his prey, as he is now just a couple car lengths back, and he could be toying with Mark McDonald.
Yeah, it looks like he's definitely kept it at arm's length. So let's jump back to Kenny Duval and Nicholas Delp. Not sure if there was a change for position here. Looks like there was, as Kenny Duval managed to send one up the inside of Augustini. Watch this. Just left the door open. Kenny mugs him, and he's given space. Easy as you like.
Oh man, I don't know if that was an open door, but that was certainly a big move by Kenny, and he made it work. Everybody here playing it smart, but right now, James David, oh, he is so close. He's gaining so much ground into the bomb hole, just very, very close.
Yeah, it seems like certain spots he's a little bit quicker than McDonald. Not sure if they've got slightly different setups on the car or something that's allowing him to maybe make some inroads at certain positions on the track, going very wide out there. Mark McDonald's unfortunately finding himself pushing the limits of the track. Again, they do have a stop and go penalty at 16 incidents, so he does have to be wary. And David gained a lot of ground coming down that pit straight, down the center straight, up to Riches. It's down to 3.5 tenths once again as we now right on board looking back from the 216.
I think that is going to get bigger and bigger is that 89 car James David. He seems to be very quick in the second half of the course, and he's keeping pace with Mark McDonald on the first half. So he's gaining on him quite a lot in the second half, pretty much from the Bentley straight on. He's certainly got the advantage there. You really only need to lead the last lap. I don't think this is going to come down to a last lap pass or a side-to-side win at the line, but you never know, and it's certainly a boost of confidence where every single lap you are getting closer. Someone has a problem on course.
Yeah, that's Lyndon Swaby. Peg leg had a self spin. This was in Palmer. You talked about overdriving that turn. I think we've got the replay. Let's see if this is a good example of what you were talking about. Looking for Swaby here. Here he is. Wow, the rear just goes out almost immediately on him.
That could have been strange time to get on the gas or something along the lines. As Mark McDonald just had a little bit of oversteer. The back end wanted to come around on him, but it's very, very easy to lose this car. And once the back end goes around, you're almost along for the ride if you can't catch it quick enough. But Mark McDonald had a bit of a bobble, and right now James David is getting on closer and closer. Let's take a ride on board with James David, though, as he's now just 2 or 3 car lengths off. He's getting closer every lap.
You can see how aggressive that McDonald is over the curbs coming through Murray's. That car pouncing around. That may have saved his bacon this time because it looks like he's pulling away a little bit from David on this lap. Now, Eric LeBlanc is staying about the same range behind them. So I almost kind of wonder if maybe these two are playing nice for now, too, because if they start battling, oh, and I spoke too soon, a little look to the inside into Wilson from James David, and nearly managed to get an opportunity to try and overtake. Didn't quite come out, though.
I think he backed off a little bit there and decided it wasn't worth it quite yet. The 89 went a little bit off track there, it almost looked like. You mentioned earlier there is an incident limit, 16x, and you will be penalized, and 24x, you'll be disqualified. So everyone has to be careful there. But right now, the fastest car on track is sitting in 4th place, Giovanni Romano. He ran under a minute 56 last lap. Now, Mark McDonald was about 2 tenths quicker than James David that last time around, and it could be attributed to the last corner, as we saw, just a better run out of Murray's. And right now, they're coming here to the end of the circuit again, getting close to it. Let's see, though, and keep an eye on these lap times, because that is what tells all in road racing.
And you mentioned that it was from here to the start-finish line that it seems David was a little quicker typically. And that's where you've got some of the fastest parts of the circuit. So almost makes me wonder if maybe there's a little less rear wing in that thing, that he's got it streamlined. Let's see what the 99 who we're watching here, Romano, is able to do as well, as he's started to close up on LeBlanc. He said he's got the fastest lap of the race. Could be a 2 pairs fighting amongst the top 4 here, and we're only 10 minutes into this race at this point.
James David seems to be taking a bit of a wider entry into the turns and diving it in a little bit harder. Right now he's losing a bit of ground, it looks like, though, so he could have overdriven his tires it's going to be interesting to see. One thing to definitely keep an eye on is the left side tires here. Is Giovanni Romano again with the fastest lap, a 1:55.665. James David just ran a 1:56 even. So these guys are not too far apart. And right there, Wilson is where it seems Mark McDonald is struggling the most. He just loses so much ground to David. But let's take a look on board with LeBlanc, as right now Giovanni Romano is getting bigger in that rearview mirror.
He's starting to threaten, that's for sure. He was a ways back and has continued to put pressure on the 5-4-2 in front of them, which we can't see right now. David's actually getting within 2/10. He got very close in Augustini. There it is on your screen now, as in the background, that was Romano kicking up a little bit of dirt going wide out of Augustini. Things ebbing and flowing between these top four, but really this is where the best action is on track. Apologies to the rest of the field, but the top of the sharp end of the field has really been giving us the best stuff.
It certainly has. It's pretty much three separate packs over the course of the entire field. You have McDonald and David running just a couple tenths apart. Is right here. David is getting so close on these straightaways. He's braking later than McDonald is. They have two different braking points. And you have the second pack being LeBlanc and Romano. They are nose to tail. And then pretty much everyone else is about 2 seconds behind them, all running fairly close to each other. So these front four, well, I don't gamble on these races, but if I had to bet on someone, it would be one of these top four drivers. I can assure you of that.
He was getting so close through the bomb hole, through Nelson and Brundle. And now he starts to fall away. This is the critical point where he wants to be right on top of McDonald's, but not going to get the opportunity into the braking for riches. Just too far back behind them. I thought maybe Romano was going to take a look. He was only about a car length back, but he opted not to. Could he send it in deep into Wilson? He sizes him up, but he does not make a move.
Through the center of Wilson, he's able to get on the gas and get a lot closer there, but on the exit, McDonald seems to have the advantage. Also, running in ninth was Marco Oliveira. He actually had some technical difficulties. He is now 4 laps down, So he was running top 10, having himself a good race, but unfortunately he's lost his power and is out of the race currently. He was running in ninth.
Like he lost his internet connection, unfortunately. Bit of a bobble there off of Augustini from Eric LeBlanc. Catches the car, doesn't lose too much time. All of them using as much of the runoff as they are allowed before they get those incident points. You can really see them pushing the boundaries. This one especially, because it's going to be onto the Bentley straight. How far do they dare go off? Both of them keeping it on that little AstroTurf area to the side, and it's not going to be enough for Romano this time by as they head under the bridge and into the braking.
James David is able to gain so much ground on corner entry over Mark McDonald, but on corner exit, McDonald is able to get to the gas, maybe a bit of a better gear ratio, but he's able to really nail these turn exits. And so running third and fourth is Eric LeBlanc and Giovanni Romano. They're almost losing ground to these leaders here because they are just so close to each other. First and second they are really on top of each other, running lap times easily within a tenth.
And this looks like it's going to be the one for Romano. He gets a much better exit off of Murray's. LeBlanc does not defend. He's going to give the inside to that bright purple car. Giovanni has an overlap, and as they break into Riches, will there be an over-under? Not for LeBlanc. He settles for fourth place. And you're right about that gap, 2.5 seconds now from David to Romano. Can he make up that ground? Does he have the pace now that he's freed up?
He was certainly a lot quicker earlier on. His last lap was a 1:55.819. Jerome has a problem. The 217 car is off track. He now has to re-enter and be very, very careful. Let's take a look at the replay, though, on what happened.
Yeah, he has contact with Prue. Unfortunately, this is going into Wilson. Now, he catches up to him very quickly here. This is interesting. And then Prue, I guess, just breaks way earlier than he expects, gets into the back of him, and that turns the car around just as another car has to take evasive action. Didn't quite see who that is, but bounds over the curb. Eventually, the Canadian is back on course, but with some severe damage.
Having front end damage is extremely, I guess the best word is annoying in these cars, where you lose the front end and it's so much more difficult to steer the car. It's almost like you're driving an entirely different setup because the car handles so differently. It's like you're on a brand new track. You don't really know what's going to happen. We're seeing Giovanni Romano start to pull away from LeBlanc here. He's got quite a few more car lengths. He's looking to try and catch these leaders, though. He's got about 2.5 seconds to gain on them. We are 18 minutes into this race, though, so he certainly has the time if he paces himself well.
Okay, let's see if he makes any inroads on David this time by. Who's still dealing with McDonald in front of him. David's lap is going to be a 55.9. His last was his quickest. It was quicker than that. 56.3 for Romano. Now, that was with an overtake, though, we should note. So kind of hard to tell if that was going to be a quicker one or not. It's obviously slower since he had to go side by side with Eric. I guess we'll have to wait for the end of this lap to really get a good measure on things. Now,
right there, Mark McDonald just almost lost the lead as James David, we saw it in Wilson, got side by side with him. We've been seeing that every lap, and the last lap that McDonald and David both ran within 1/1000th of a second of each other. These guys are pretty much dead.
Right on board with the number 89 at this point. I was going to try and jump us back in the middle of the pack, but really this is once again heated up with that mistake that we got from McDonald. So it is once again the best fight we have in the entire field as they come out of Augie's. Ooh, a little bit different racing lines between them this time, interestingly.
It seems like James David is looking for a little bit more where he can be better. And Mark McDonald is just out there hitting his marks, nailing his braking zones, trying not to give too much of a toe to James David. And just Mark McDonald is doing what he knows he has to do. He knows his line. He knows how to get around this course. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been in pole and led all these laps so far. Not to say that James David doesn't know all this, but he's got to find some way to be faster than McDonald because they both seem to be running such similar lines the entire race so far. James David has to do something different if he wants to get around that 216.
Certainly seems like he's going to have to start pulling some tricks out. And I wonder if maybe pit stops will have to do with that a little wide there at the last apex from McDonald. Oh, this is the best run we've seen from James David all race long. I think there's a chance he could go for it. Let's see if he wants to be aggressive. He's going to at least take a look as he shows his nose, but it's not a serious one, just getting into the head of McDonald. Meanwhile, Sebastian Prue seems to have had some more issues. He's off track at the end of the course and just freewheeling it out and kind of the weeds there. He's got to get it back on eventually. There we go. Now, what caused this? That's the question. It's coming through Murray's. Oh, the rear on the exit. Looks like it did not want to grip up. So the 79 went for a ride.
He brought it back around, though, mowed some grass in the meantime. And right now, though, up at the front, James David, once again, he showed his muscles in Wilson and then decided to back off. You have to wonder, how much do you think of a mind game is James David playing right now? How much is he trying to get into the head of Mark McDonald, and is it going to work?
I think he's absolutely trying to get into his head. From what I've seen of these top drivers so far this season, they are smart guys. They think these races through. And James David at this point looking for win number 3 as, whoa, we had a off screen. We had a car way off. Trying to see who that was. Mike Richter. He goes for a wild ride here. I think he's going to hit the grass under braking. The Texan, yeah, you'll see this coming into Augustini. Unfortunately, trying to slow the car in the grass is not very effective. Watch this.
Oh, the right side's just barely caught it, and he went drifting, and a long, long ride and a hard hit to the barriers there on the edge. You have to wonder what kind of damage that's going to do, as he really nailed them sideways. And right now, though, he worked his way back on track. It was a rough incident there, but he's still out there trying to make it work. Somebody with a bit of a gap now, though, is Mark McDonald. He's pulled away, but you can see the damage on that Richter machine. He is certainly trying to fight that car.
All of our top four have gapped each other. David fallen away from McDonald, and Romano at one point was more than a second ahead of LeBlanc. So things starting to change there. I think we have our first scheduled pit stop because it looks like Mark File is heading down pit lane.
Nice quick pit stops for these guys, though, and they have to be sure to absolutely, under no circumstances, overdrive the entry to the turns. It always amazes me how hard everyone will drive it onto pit road. Certainly no holds barred, trying to get every single inch they possibly can here on entry. There's not really much you can do wrong once you're fully on pit road, because you should have your pit road speed limiter on. But getting in, it's very easy to overdrive it and speed on entry, and you lock up the tires and risk spinning around.
Meanwhile, it looks like now we've got a chance to finally show some of these mid-pack drivers because there's some action happening for seventh. Daniel Zagers leading Duval, leading Delp currently, and all of them have made great inroads. Zagers started 11th. He's in 7th now. Duval from 14th to 8th. And Delp started 12th. He's in 9th. All a positive net gain. The biggest currently, Kenny Duval, in the midst of those three. They're actually not too far back from Eric Luke here in 6th position. You'll get a flash of him here and there on your screen. So if he makes a mistake, he could find himself making a quartet.
Certainly looking to avoid any mistakes, though. That's one of the most frustrating things as a driver, is when you have a lead. Fastest lap to Mark McDonald, a 1:55.42 there. But it's one of the most frustrating things as a driver, where you have a bit of a lead, you've worked for it, and it can just go away so quickly. Another driver that's worked their way through the field is Brian Hotham in the 13 car. Started 21st, he's up to 15th. He's got 10 seconds to Sebastian Prue in front of him. But right now, gain of 6 spots, that's not a bad night at all for the first 25 minutes of this event.
Absolutely. You should be proud of that one. You see Hotham heading onto the front stretch now. And in the meantime, let's head back to Zagers because it looks like he's having trouble trying to keep Duval behind him. Kenny has closed that gap down now to 0.3 of a second. Agostini sometimes offering passing opportunities if you're brave. We saw it once already, but not quite this time. Oh, a little hard into the corner for Zagers. Look at him wash out wide. He's obviously feeling it from the number 63.
Not sure if that was overdriving or the car is just understeering, but right there, he's really seems to struggle with the handling, and Duval is right on top of it, able to nail his apexes and gain some ground down this long straightaway coming up, though. We'll see what happens. Right now, they are really fighting hard for position. Duval wants that spot.
This race is heading by in a flash. We're already past halfway now. As they come down the Bentley straight, Duval's not going to get the opportunity that he needs into Brundle and Nelson. So I have to sit tight for now. And Zagers very strong off of Nelson. Now as they head through the bomb hole, this could make the difference through Coram. If you've got a car that's got good mechanical grip, it'll certainly show here as he takes it out wide, cuts it back in. Doesn't look like he has much of an advantage. And down into the braking zone, much stronger is Kenny Duval, but maybe a little too strong as he sends it off wide out of Murray's, and he loses all that ground he gained.
I think that was quite honestly a mental mistake there by Duval. He just got greedy and saw how much he was closing in, overdrove that turn, unfortunately. It's very easy to do. It is incredibly easy to do in these cars especially. You see the advantage that you're gaining, and right now Duval is trying to take as much ground as he possibly can. I think a bit of patience and he'll be able to get around that car, but road racing is as much a skill sport as it is a mental sport. You have to be on top of your game, you have to be disciplined and patient, and it's certainly not an easy thing to do. He's shown great restraint, though, when he worked his way up and gained 6 spots. You don't do that by being rash and aggressive and hold those positions, I should say. But right now, it could be Daniel Zegers trying to hold him off. It could be Kenny Duval that really is the deciding factor, and if he makes it harder on himself than he needs to.
Down into Augie's one more time, and right now, with the pit window closing down, the only drivers that we've had pit are File, Padavani, Richter, Banks, and Duchesne. Some of those are not scheduled, though. File is our highest bidder. That was a scheduled stop for him about 3 laps ago. Maybe Duval start thinking about coming in at some point, see if he can leapfrog the car ahead. So we jump back to Mark McDonald now. David has closed it back down. It went from those 0.8 of a second up to 0.5, or down to 0.5, I should say. David once again looking strong, and now he is employing strategy calls. Into the pits goes our second place driver. Is this going to give him a position?
It certainly could. We saw Mark McDonald. He's still putting down very solid lap times of 1:55.803. They're only 0.2 off of his qualifying time. Certainly still running strong, but seems like he's suffering from a bit of understeer. He's not able to hit those apexes like he was earlier. So a good decision here by James David, possibly, as he chooses to come in and pit. He's already back out 25.5 seconds in pit lane, and he's back on track.
Got a little bit of traffic in front of him, but it's not for a ways, so he should have clear track. Now, I've been noticing this pit lane has these bumps in them as you go up the pit lane, because there's a bit of a rise in the track, and they try to keep them level. So I guess the drivers have to be careful about how many stalls they go through before they steer in, because they don't want to damage the car as they come over those bumps. Hilton has now finished his pit stop, returns in 15th place himself. We got a ways to go before we get the rest of our leaders back to the pit lane, so we won't find out if McDonald will respond, but he's pushing. He is very much pushing, as he had a big bobble coming through Williams.
He is doing everything he can right now to try and make it happen, going down the Bentley straight, a hard left into Brundle, and then right after a hard right turn into Nelson. I had a lot of trouble when I was running this course at that particular spot. He nails it, though. I imagine we're going to see him coming in pit fairly soon.
We had a problem with Duval. We had a big problem with Duval. The number 63 has wrecked out. Big contact with the Armco coming out of Williams, and he considers it bad enough that he is going to call it a day, as he took a tow immediately. Here he's coming through Hamilton into Augie, so it'll be the next corner after this one. At this point, he was still chasing, seeing if he could get Zegers, and he was looking like he might have something, but then maybe just a little too wide here. Let's see. No, it was sliding before he even went off. Oh.
A hard hit to that front end certainly will do quite a lot of damage. And it's like we discussed earlier. Patience is huge here. I think he was just overdriving that car, getting everything he possibly could, and I can't blame him for it in the slightest. It is incredibly difficult, and when you've already gained 6 positions and you can see the guy in front of you, you want so badly to jump on it. But there was still 15 minutes left in this race. He overdrove the turn a little bit, and the car just went around on him. Couldn't take it anymore. Right now, Mark McDonald is fighting through some lap traffic. Has not come into pit yet. Another driver that's done quite well, up 5 spots though, is Daniel Zegers. He is in the number 8 car. He was holding off the 63 of Kenny Duval, but right now he is sitting in 6th place and just doing what he needs to do and staying patient around this course, this 3-mile course.
That is due to drivers who have pitted, so he needs to come in for his stop still. Keep an eye on that and see where he slots out. I wonder if this is a strategic mistake from McDonald staying out another lap, especially with him hitting lap traffic now. Because again, David has been all on his lonesome. He hasn't had to deal with anybody just rifling him off. So he could be lapping quicker than McDonald's right now. Let's see if Mark finally decides to come in, because he's actually getting to the end of the pit window by now.
Romano seems to be closing in. It's under 2 seconds now to McDonald. It's interesting to see. Looks like he's coming off the last turn. He's going to hit pit road. No, he thinks better of it, and he stays out. He got all sorts of tricked up getting ready to come down pit road and got back out on track.
You know, I think that was Troy Banks. He saw Troy Banks coming in very, very slow. He decided, no, I've got enough fuel for another lap. I can't risk being slowed up in my pit stop. So maybe he was almost forced to stay out if he had enough to try and go one longer. Romano, I'm not sure if he lost time or not, because he did come in behind Banks. He's going to come out ahead of Banks, interestingly. And that is going to dump him. Where is David? David's going to just zip by. But it's not a huge gap between them.
No, Romano was certainly fast, and right about 8 minutes in is where Romano was putting down his fastest laps and was faster than the other drivers, I should say. And so right now, let's take a look back at McDonald. Though he got really checked up, like he was getting ready to come down pit road, and then stayed out because he saw Banks there. My goodness, that could be the race. That really could be the race, and that's just a very unfortunate, I guess, timing. Really, there's nothing that he did wrong per se. It's just that Banks was in front of him slow. He was getting ready to come down pit road, saw him, and had to go back out and jump back on the gas after starting to slow down.
Yeah, well, like I said though, I think he missed a trick because he could have come in the lap immediately after, and he wouldn't have hit the lap traffic. He wouldn't have been potentially held up by the by Banks coming into the pits. So I kind of put this one on him still. Yeah, it was unfortunate he caught those drivers when he did, but you got to be heads up, especially strategy wise in series like this where every 10th counts. And Mark McDonald, as he comes out of Murray's, I have to imagine at this point he's got to come in. I don't think he can go much farther than this. And indeed, pushing it down into pit lane. He's going to be followed by second place driver Eric LeBlanc. And now we watch James David to see what happens with the driver in 8th place who has already finished his stop and is looking to leapfrog his rival.
We'll have to see how it goes there. I'm afraid I do have to agree with you, though. Is that not? I'm not afraid of agreeing with you, I should say, but I'm afraid that yeah, he did really shoot himself in the foot per se because he caught that lap
Here it
traffic.
goes.
But racing is a lot of what
And he's
ifs.
by.
Here's the battle for the lead, and David is by him. So now we'll see what all is going to happen if David's able to hold him off, or if Romano could have something to say about it because he's certainly not out of this one either.
McDonald has got to be kicking himself. I think he knows what happened in that exchange. David ahead of him by 1.2 seconds, and Romano threatening as well, half a second behind in that lavender machine. You can just see him behind McDonald's car, sporting that tartan on the hood. They come down into Augustini one more time. 12 minutes left to go, and from here, Jeff, there's no trickery in the pits. If you're going to make an overtake, it's got to be out there on the track.
You're exactly right. Pit strategy, that the time for pit strategy has passed. Now it is time for some hard racing. 3 miles per lap, and you've got just enough time to make some moves here, I think. I think we could see some passing, but I don't think it's the kind of passing Mark McDonald wants to see because it'll be the cars going around him, I'm afraid. Right now, Giovanni Romano's got some heat in those tires. He's turned a couple laps since then, and we know he's quick. Same thing for James David. He's incredibly quick all day, and he's been on top of his game. I think it's going to take a mistake by at least one of those drivers as Romano takes a look but thinks better of it. It's going to take a mistake from Romano or David for Mark McDonald to really have a chance here at this race.
I don't think Romano's going to sit tight for forever here. Again, top 3 in the points, top 3 positions out on the track right now. Not necessarily in the order they are in the points. Romano, who is in second in the championship, does not want to give these away to McDonald, and he's chasing him. In fact, he's got a fantastic run. This could be his best chance to try and get by. Is he going to waste the opportunity, or is he going to take it while it's within his grasp? He takes a little bit of a look, but he comes back to the racing line. He's going to stay patient.
We know McDonald is weak in Wilson, and I think Romano knows that as well, as he'll probably try and get a run through the center here. This is McDonald's worst turn is through Wilson. He actually ran it pretty well there, but Romano is going to start, I think, getting a little bit impatient. Is going to jump on the next opportunity he gets to get around McDonald. Right now, they're about 2 seconds behind James David.
Don't forget the stranger lurking in the background. That is LeBlanc in 4th place. He is still within distance that he could do some damage to this fight. If these two start squabbling, maybe that's what Romano's thinking about here. Maybe he sees that mirror and knows, I can't make a silly move. I got to make a decisive one and get it over with quick.
The last thing you want to be is racing side by side with the guy behind you. And so Romano knows he needs to really get on top of this and get by McDonald sooner rather than later, just so he doesn't have to start fighting LeBlanc. Because once that happens, he can kiss second place goodbye, and Mark McDonald will be able to hold it down. And a second place finish certainly wouldn't be bad. I mean, if you're complaining about second place, then you had a pretty strong car and a pretty good day. So we'll have to see, though. Mark McDonald is going to do everything he can to hold off Romano and not let him by. But McDonald is weak in Wilson, and he's weak on really the second half of the course from Brundle all the way to the start-finish line is where he's been significantly weaker. And Romano here through Karam is going to have a lot of time to make up as he fell a bit back.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he fell back like he did. I think that happened in the bomb hole. He must have had a little bit of a mistake or something. One thing worth pointing out as we've been watching this, James David has made good use of the clear air. 2.3 seconds ahead of McDonald. Remember, it was about 1.2 when they came out of the pits, when they finished the pit cycle. So he's actually been extending the gap. Maybe David wasn't fighting McDonald this whole time. Maybe he was playing possum and just sitting and waiting behind him in the first half of this race. So it just looks like the 89, now that he is ahead, is in controlling form.
You're certainly right. He was actually about 4/10 quicker that last lap than Mark McDonald was. And right now, I think you might be right that he was sort of sitting back, playing possum, like you said, and just not having to fight a battle he didn't need to fight. Could go back to earlier what I was talking about, where it's a long, long race. You see Mark McDonald flashing the headlights. That's a lap traffic. That is some lap traffic in front of him. The 17 car, Gary Schilling, hoping that he'll get out of the way and make a quick pass on him. But James David right now is certainly in the lead, pulling away by quite a bit, a couple tenths a lap.
And this lap traffic, Schilling was very much in the way of McDonald, as Romano also held up slightly on the exit of Williams, so it all came out in the wash. But I thought for a moment that the 216 was going to be extremely vulnerable down the Bentley straight. Looks like he was able to get away from that. Still 8 minutes left to go. You're talking about 2 minutes per lap. They're down to what, about 4 laps left here?
Just about 4 laps left, and I think everyone is sitting and watching the clock and doing their best to make sure that they are getting everything they can out of these cars. They're getting down to crunch time here. Take a look along with these camera angles, though. Phenomenal camera angles. As you can see all the racing action, you see Romano getting closer and closer to Mark McDonald, doing everything he can to try and get around him and get second place.
And that brought LeBlanc in, that lap traffic on the backstretch. We are now in a three-way fight for second place. James David probably appreciating that as he sees the battle in his mirrors. We're on board with the Canadian, Eric LeBlanc, following them into Wilson. Oh, just getting a nose in, but can't quite get enough room underneath Romano.
This is a worst-case scenario for Romano. I'm sure he's wishing he made that move into Riches a couple laps ago on McDonald, but he thought better of it. Tried to make a move in Wilson, and it just didn't work. And right now, he's going to have to hold off LeBlanc for fourth place. Oh, and LeBlanc sticks the nose in, doesn't quite get the run there. Hamilton turn is coming up, and he's doing everything he can to hold him off. But once you're battling with the guy behind you, man, I think Mark McDonald is looking in this and cheering for LeBlanc. He wants a side-by-side battle with Romano.
Yeah, it's given him the most breathing space he's had since the pit stops. And coming through Williams, a little bit of different line between Romano and LeBlanc. LeBlanc with not quite as good of a run. So he starts to lose ground, and by the time they get to the braking zone of Nelson and Brundle, they're just going to stay put in third and fourth respectively. And right on board now, looking back from Romano at Matt LeBlanc. Eric LeBlanc, excuse me.
Wrong LeBlanc, we're all sorts of mixed up here because we have been treated to such amazing action. I think our brains are starting to short circuit now because we have been absolutely blessed with this amazing racing here. The top 5 are pretty close to each other with the exception of Jorge Flores. The top 4, I meant to say, have all pulled away from the rest of the field. 11.6 seconds over the number 29 car. These guys are really flexing their muscles here and asserting their dominance as the top 4.
Things have cooled down a little bit with this battle for second. If anything, it's turned into the battle for third instead. Romano trying to stay on the podium. LeBlanc 5th in the points. I'm sure he'd love to get a top 3 today and get to spray the champagne with 5.5 minutes left to go. Once again, they come into the infield to the twistier parts where it's harder to try and get by. But last time through, Jeff, we saw a mistake from Romano coming up to this very corner into Augustini.
We did, and it gave LeBlanc the chance. It doesn't look like he's going to get it again as Romano shuts the door there just to be safe and gets it all the way down to the bottom. I think one thing, though, that everyone can be happy about, the one thing I can guarantee you with these top three cars is that at the end of it, it's going to be a Porsche. Other than that, I'm really not sure who the top three are going to be. I have a good feeling it'll be James David. Right, it goes back to the betting earlier. I don't bet too much on these races. But if I had to, I would bet that a Porsche is going to finish top three for every position. But right now, Eric LeBlanc is trying to make sure it's his Porsche finishing top three and doing everything he can to catch up to Romano. He now has a bit of breathing room.
Poor Christopher Richards unfortunately lost his rear wing in a wreck out of Rich's, ironically. The 49 is able to get the car going again, but has some significant damage, unfortunately. Meanwhile, those top four all now spacing apart, getting that social distancing in. We're going to come to 2 to go, it looks like. Oh, we got a car off in front of them. That is Simkovic. I think he's slow, so he's going to be able to get out of the way.
LeBlanc almost overdrove Murray's there. Really came close, but managed to wrangle it in and get on track. You mentioned the social distancing. I think Romano is looking to practice it as he's pulling away from LeBlanc now. Got quite a bit more of a gap than he had the last time around. But we're getting down to crunch time here. About 2 laps to go here. And right now, you have to be perfect and not make a mistake. You don't want to throw away 45 minutes of work.
One thing that could hurt David here, as he is losing ground to McDonald once again, it's down to 1.5. He's got lap traffic in front of him now. Danny Duchesne is up next. I think he's got too much distance to catch Glenn Bowen, who's the next one up. Hopefully Duchesne's got his head up and he's watching that F3 box so that he knows the leaders are coming, because he will have a good chance on the Bentley straight to let them all through if he's not worried about catching anybody right now.
I strongly doubt he's going to be able to get in their way. We're coming to 2 to go at the line, though, and James David wants to just get around this lap traffic. It's coming up here, his opportunity to. He's gaining. He's a lot quicker, as we've seen the entire night. But right now, that 27 car is going to stay to the left, give him the room he needs to pass. Doesn't look, yeah, he's not going to go side by side with them. I was a bit worried for a second, then I remembered just how long this straightaway is. Definitely plenty of room to flex your muscles and get around if you're James David. And he is now working his way through his strongest part of the course here. And he is doing everything he needs to do and has the entire night to bring this thing home in first place. 2 more times around, and he doesn't make any mistakes, and he should win this.
Duchesne's doing a perfect job here, is letting everybody through in this fight, not interrupting it. That is the great sportsmanship we see here in the Precision Racing League. Meanwhile, James David, is it going to be 2 laps or 1 lap? This is going to be tight as he comes to the line. It's 55 exactly, which is what they've been running on their best laps. So we actually don't know if this is the last lap or not. We'll find out with you once we come around to the line. The 89, I hope he took enough fuel. That's something we haven't talked about. Oh, and McDonald is off from second place and into the wall, and it looks like he's got a follower. That's Duchesne, the lapped car.
My goodness, what happened there? We're taking a look at the replay. Going into Rich's. He's driving it, and he threw away 45 minutes of work with a bit of oversteer on exit. Hits the wall fairly sideways, but that's certainly going to impact how the car's handling. The 27 followed him behind. That was the lap car. And right now we're following along Daniel Zeggers, but that's a big mistake by McDonald.
Yeah, that was just Duchesne. That was a lapped car, which is a shame to see him also have a wreck after he was doing so well letting the leaders by, and that was unrelated to the incident. So it could be that on the last lap or the second to last lap, depending on how things go, that Mark McDonald threw things away. Already David is on the Bentley straight. McDonald recovers to 4th. He had such a gap to the car's back. They were running such a torrid pace that he at least kept himself safe, but he's off the podium, which is going to hurt in the points chase, considering he was in second, and now his 3rd place in the points could be in jeopardy. Now, what about James David in this last lap? 2.3 seconds back to Romano. He can't really afford to slow up to try and get this checkered flag. What's it going to be? 15 left to go. Down through Coram into Murray's. A little bit of lap traffic in front of him. Glenn Bowen, who I mentioned earlier, he is indeed going to catch him, and he's going to try and let him by. But will this actually be the last lap for James David? 0. Does he get the checkered flag? We get the white flag. And no, this is one more lap. Did he put enough fuel in?
Oh my goodness. You sure hope he put enough fuel in. Otherwise, he is sweating bullets. One more time around here as he caught the line right there at the end. Nails Wilson. That was a beautiful turn right there. Right now, going down to Palmer. He's got his work cut out for him. He doesn't want to make a mistake like McDonald did. Doesn't want to give it away. He's earned this win, assuming he put enough fuel in, of course. He's just got to run this lap clean. He's got 2.5 seconds back to Giovanni Romano and about another 1.4 seconds back to LeBlanc. So he solidly got the win unless he makes a mistake. He needs to just be perfect here and hope that he's got enough fuel.
Now, it doesn't look like he's driving the car lightly. If he was short on fuel, you would think he would be soft shoeing it. So as we hop on board, let's give a listen here. Let's see if he's lifting and coasting into the corners. Didn't really hear it there. Yeah, he's fully on the throttle. 2.2 seconds ahead of Romano. Hasn't gave away any of that gap. This is all well ahead of Mark McDonald, too, still limping that car. He might actually lose 4th place because Jorge Flores is gaining ground on him quickly. Well, we wondered if there would be drama, but I guess there was a bit of a false alarm for James David as he is solidly running this one to the end with plenty of fuel. Down into Murray's. What a run from the number 89. Didn't put it on pole. Won't get that bonus point, but you know what? He's going to be the first person to take 3 wins this season and his first time on air. James David, your winner here today. Romano with 2nd and LeBlanc coming home 3rd. It's a close one for McDonald, but Flores is just coming up shy. No, McDonald is slowing. Did he run out of fuel? At the line, he loses the spot to Flores.
Oh, a bad night gets worse for McDonald. That's just... Man, that's kicking a man while he's down. I think he's ran out of fuel, but let's take a look at the replay and listen in.
Yeah, this will tell us whether or not he actually ran out. Yeah, the car just buttering as he comes to the line. Had some other good fights as Delp beat home Bertome to 8th place, where he watched from on board, and there it goes. He's even trying to block a little bit to do what he can to interrupt the momentum. It's just not going to work out. Last of the drivers come across the line, only 18 on the lead lap here today, and James David led them all to the victory. We're going to take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Snetterton Circuit. We just watched round 5 in the PRL GT4 Clubsport Championship, and James David took the win. Perfect strategy, perfect pace. Really hard to fault James for much of anything today, except for the fact that he didn't take pole. But really, I don't think he'll mind at all. It was Giovanni Romano who wound up following him home, even though we didn't see Romano in second place all race long. Until the very end, Eric LeBlanc managed to grab third just behind them and round out the podium. Jorge Flores, of all people, at the very end of the race, literally coming to the line, took fourth. Ahead of our pole sitter, Mark McDonald. Not only did he make a strategy error in the pit stops and got slowed up, and that cost him the lead, but then at the very end, with 2 laps to go, spun the car out, went from second place down to fifth, and ran out of fuel at the line. Eric Luke was 6th behind him, with Daniel Zagers in the 7th position. Nicholas Delp finished 8th with Jerome Batome in P9, and then David Cristelli rounds out your top 10.
In 11th, you had Matt Hilton, who started 13th, gained a few positions. Mark File in 12th, and Brian Hotham started 21st, finished 13th, a gain of 8 spots. And right behind him, the big loser on the night, unfortunately, Jefferson Padavani started 5th and finished 14th. Christopher Richards finished 15th. Sebastian Pruitt was 16th. 17th was Kenny Duvall, who was running so far off the field and was having a fantastic run. Just overdrove the exit a tiny bit. Finished 17th. 18th was Mike Richter. 19th, Duchesne was Danny Duchesne. In 20th was Gary Schilling. 21st was Troy Banks. 22nd, Spencer Semkowicz. 23rd, Glenn Bowen. 24th, Lyndon Swaby. And 25th was Marco Oliveira, who had some technical difficulties. But in the booth with us right now is our big winner, James David.
Hi,
Yes.
guys. How are you?
Congratulations, James. We're great. I have to imagine you're even better. It's not only your third win, but the first time you've actually finally won on the broadcast with us. That's got to feel good.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that, but thank you. Yeah, that was a difficult race. This track is very hard to find the grip all night. I have difficulty to find the grip, and I was lucky with the pit stop. I don't know if I don't didn't look at the replay if Mark has problem. You can told me, guys, what happened.
He unfortunately spun with 2 laps to go. Just lost the rear of the car, put a wheel off in the grass and riches, and away he went.
Yeah, that was a difficult race. We were always close to lose the car. I was at the beginning. I was following him, and my God, I told myself I won't be able to pass him. This track is not easy to pass. But after 6 7 laps, we saw he has problem to have the grip on the tire. So that's at that time I decided to pit earlier than him. I was confident to have more pace than him at this point, so that's what I have done.
Well, this certainly helps you in your championship hunt, as this will extend your gap over all your rivals. Uh, do you consider Mark a threat, especially after he loses a chunk here today, falling down to fifth at the end? Is that enough that it makes you feel a little safer, or do you still worry with the pace that he's been showing compared to you?
Yeah, I think the championship is really not done right now. Done. If I have a big crash in one race, I think we have one drop week. But anyway, if we have one or two bad week, it can change really fast. So each week it can be a new winner. I'm getting confident, but this week I have to tell you this track it's not my best. I wasn't confident to win it, so I was pretty happy with the pit strategy that worked well out there.
Well, I think you should be proud of yourself on that one because we said it at the end of the race, reading the results. It was pretty much a perfect race from you, from what we could see, and perfect strategy call from you as well. Again, congratulations, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple weeks' time.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, and thanks to the sponsor SimSA and GSR, the Global Sim Racing. Thank you very much for the broadcast.
Thank you very much for giving us a good show. That was James David, our winner. Up next, Jeff has caught up with Giovanni Romano, who maybe got a little bit of a surprise second place.
Yeah, that was going to be actually my first question, Giovanni. Were you expecting to come home second here with 40 minutes left in the race, and really with 3 minutes left in the race? Were you expecting to finish second and bring it home there?
Well, with 40 minutes left in the race, I was hoping I still had a shot at a win. But with a few minutes left in the race, I certainly wasn't expecting to jump to second. Mark has been pretty stout so far, so I wasn't expecting him to make a mistake. It sucks to see that happen because I rather would have beaten him one-on-one on the track rather than through a mistake like that. But in terms of the championship, I guess I'll take it.
Absolutely, and the championship standing is changing by the week. We talked with James David about it and asked his level of confidence. How are you feeling about it now that this week has come to an end and Mark has sort of fallen back a little after finishing fifth, and you had a fantastic run? How are you feeling?
Well, yeah, with Mark's issues, I'm pretty solidly in second now. And we're so halfway through the season here. And I think the main problem is we're all, not just me, going to have to do something about Mr. James David because last two races he's put a clinic out on us. And if we don't stop him soon, he's going to run away with it. So, but still, it's still very close at the top. So anything can happen. And 5 races to go. It should be interesting.
Interesting, it certainly will be. You had a second place finish here tonight. Who do you have to thank for getting you there?
First of all, I'm gonna put a not thank you to whoever put a speed bump in front of the fourth pit stall. Like it almost launched my car through my pit box. So that was interesting. But outside of that, thank you guys for the broadcast and thanks to PRL for running everything. And congrats to James for a good win.
Well, congratulations to you as well on a second place finish. Hopefully, we will see you here up in the booth with us next week. You had a fantastic run. You were very patient, I noticed, very patient throughout the race. So, congratulations on that and a great second place.
And now we have Eric LeBlanc, third place finisher here in the booth as well. Eric had quite a fight back there with Giovanni Romano for much of the race. Eric, it seemed like that swapped back and forth where at certain points you were the defender and in certain points you were the attacker. Tell us about that.
Yeah, early on in the race, Giovanni was able to catch me up, and then I kind of decided not to really fight him. I kind of let him by, when he was close to me. And then I just tried to hang in there with them and see what would happen. And they slowed down. I think at the end of the race, they were having issues with their tires, him and Mark. So I was there really close, hoping for something happen. And at the end, I think at the last lap, the lap before, Giovanni went in the grass, and I kind of decided to cool off after Mark went off, and that's it. I got that third place. I'm happy.
It sounds like it. I don't blame you. A podium here, it must be very hard to get. And speaking of the tires, there's some relatively long corners around here. And I know we talked about it at the start of the season about some of those long corners chewing up the tires. Did you find that one side or the other of the car was giving way more so because of those long corners?
Yeah, a little bit. There's that long right corner at the end that's very long, and that's the corner you gotta not overdrive the car if you want to save the tires. And I took care of that all race, and I think at the end, I was really able to get back on the two guys in front of me because of that. But they did not make big mistakes. Only Mark did one. I was not expecting him, but it happened.
So coming into this race, you were fifth in the championship, and now you get jumped up to fourth. You're looking within touching distance of a few of those guys. Do you think you can bring something to McDonald's, Romano, and David for the remainder of the season?
I wouldn't think so, we'll see. Unless they have big issues, crashes and stuff like that, I might try to be more aggressive towards the end. But I'm gonna try to stay close to them and see how their fight goes together.
All right, that sounds like a plan to me. Again, congratulations. That was Eric LeBlanc, third place finisher here today in round 5. But it's going to wrap up our interview. So, a big thank you ourselves to the sponsors once again. Simulation Motorsports Affinity can be found at SIMMSA.net if you want to see how you can get involved in the worldwide sim racing community. And ButtKicker can be found at thebuttkicker.com if you want to add all the realism you can to your sim rig. And we'll have to say goodbye to the scary tree, the infamous scary tree in the background, as we say thank you to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Jeff, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We've also got social media outlets. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook is Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is GSRC_gram. If you'd like to support the channel, check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storeenvy.com. We've got a link in the description below if you don't want to type that in, where you can get some swag, and make sure if you do to get a photo and post it on social media with the hashtag RedBrand. The link, of course, is also got to the subscribe button there just above it below our YouTube video. Make sure and click that so that you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. But the next race that we're covering, if you click that link, you're going to see Silverstone. That'll be the old version that they'll be running here on iRacing, not the newest one. It'll be Tuesday, April 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.